Good morning, everyone. So, we are doing this chapter of the objectives and methods of struggle of the early nationalists. I think in my last video I have explained to you who were the early nationalists who had attempted to fight for the freedom of our country and the methods in which they applied in order to do so. Okay, so we have already discussed that they were very highly qualified educators, and most of them were very had western education for which they so among the eminent nationalists of the radicals of this time were Dadabhai Nauroji. I think I have already mentioned them previously in my video. So we are just going to study the contributions of three of them, that is Dadabhai Nauroji, Surendranath Banerjee and Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Okay, so I'm just discussing all the points which are included in the syllabus, but you have to study any two. But the fact is, it's better to go through all the points, because if any question comes to specific to contributions, then at least you can answer. Okay, so let's start with Dadabhai Nauroji. He was called the Grand Old Man of India, as he was an unofficial ambassador in England. Okay, its object, his main, he founded the East India Association in London, which object was to inform the British of the true state of affairs in India, means what was the condition in India. And as we have discussed earlier, said they were very keen in doing negotiations and discussions over the state of affairs, because they wanted a smooth way of independence over talks and discussions. So that is the reason he formed this association, which was called the East India Association. And it was due to his efforts that British House of Commons passed a resolution recommending that the ICS, that is the Indian Civil Service Examination, be held simultaneously both in England and in India. So with his efforts, what did he do? He made it possible for the Indian people also to sit for the ICS examinations, and with this view he actually had it passed in the British House of Commons. But however, it could not become an act. It was just passed as a recommendation. His second contribution, that he was he was one of the founder members of the Indian National Congress, and he presided over the sessions of the Congress in thrice. And under his presidency, the partition of Bengal in 1905 had a very great disappointment for these early nationalists, because it was a matter of violence during that time, which the nationalists totally discarded. So then he came to Kolkata during his session of Congress in 1906, when he laid stress on the attainment of Swaraj. And he said that as in United Kingdom, all taxation, legislation and all powers of spending the taxes were in the hands of the representatives of the people. So that should also be the case of India. The Congress session of 1906 passed resolutions of Swadeshi, Swaraj, boycott and national education. As a journalist, he edited the Rast Goftar, which is called the Speaker of Truth. He also started a magazine called Dharma Marg Darshak, and he was a great writer. He was mainly famous for his drain theory, where he explained that India's wealth was being used by England in many forms, and as a result, England was making use of the resources of our country for their own benefits. He said that salaries payable to the members of Indian Council, sending of their savings to England by British personnel posted in India, pensions to British officers, payments to the War Office for maintenance of British troops in India, profits of the British trading agencies, all this were the ways in which the Britishers were actually draining the wealth from the India by using their own resources. So this was the reasons by which this was the contributions which helped him to fight for freedom in his own way. Then let us come to Surendranath Banerjee. Surendranath Banerjee, he was a professor of English. Okay, so after his dismissal from Indian Civil Service Examination, he became the professor of English in Metropolitan Institution. How did he contribute to the India's freedom struggle? He had a great inspiration from Joseph Mazzini, who was a great nationalist of Italy. and he learnt a lot of things from him and he used it in his own methods. His fight against injustice and representation was there when he involved himself in 1877 when the age limit for the civil service examination was reduced from 21 to 19. He protested against the reduction of the maximum age limit and also criticized the Arms Act and the Vernacular Press Act. Then elective offices were just a means to serve people. He said that offices such as the Bengal Legislative Council and all, these were just a means to serve the people in the name of the British. So he protested against them. Then he convened the Indian National Conference in 1883. In 1885, the Indian National Congress was born, and he was also there who presided over the presidency of the Congress in two sessions, that is in 1895 and 1902. So he also had a great role to play in the emergence of the Indian National Congress. As a journalist, he edited the Bengali Journal, which was founded by W.C. Banerjee, which criticized the Ilbert Bill and the Vernacular Press Act. He was a firm believer of India's right to self-government, which he wrote in his book called A Nation in the Making. He also accommodated for constitutional means for attaining India's goals, and he said that opposition has to be placed wherever it was necessary or where cooperation was possible. Okay, so he advocated both opposition as well as cooperation wherever it was necessary. He also supported the Swadeshi movement, and he gave a firm resistance to partition of Bengal in 1905. Okay, so these were his contributions to the freedom struggle. Then we come to Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who was also called the political guru of Gandhi. His main contribution was among the Congress leaders when he also presided over the Varanasi session of the Congress in 1905. He urged that the goal of the Congress should be attainment of the form of government which is similar to that existed in the self-governing colonies of the British Empire. He suggested that the portions which were under the British Empire, the self-governing portions, that means who had their own powers. So our government should be having that kind of system where the government will be self-sufficient, will be self-governing. Okay, so this was what he advocated for. He also had faith in the constitutional means to achieve this goal, and he also supported the Swadeshi movement. He made a strong plea for the reform of the Legislative Council and separation of the judiciary from the executive. So he said that there should be separation of powers between the judiciary and the legislative councils. He established the Servants of India Society, where members were required to create among the people a deep and passionate love for motherland. In matters of arousing the national feelings towards the nation, he became a member of the Imperial Legislative Council, where he pleaded for reduction of salt duty, abolition of excise duty on the cotton goods. Then he moved to the Imperial Legislative Council, where India bonded labor in Natal. He gave his budget speeches where he pleaded for free primary education for all children, and he also gave a large share, in his opinion, in the Indian civil service. Okay, so these were his contributions in these fields. His main contribution was founded in his economic ideas, where he pleaded for reduction of land revenue, giving cheap credit loans to peasants, and he was in favor of the state protection to infant Indian industries. That means the Indian industries which were just emerged, okay, which were not established ones but which are just emerged. So you can call this to be the cottage industries or the small handicraft industries also. He was in favor of giving state protection to such industries. He called for the employment of members of the educated middle class, and in this way he gave his contribution to the Indian national freedom struggle. Okay, so I think by all these contributions you are able to understand that they were silent protesters. They were non-violent protesters who wanted the freedom struggle to be in a very systematic and negotiable manner, and they did not acquire for any kind of bloodshed. Okay, So after this video, I would expect all my students to go through the details of the contributions of these three great personalities and for a better understanding of your chapter. Okay. Thank you for listening to me. Have a nice day.